Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny, delighted to be here. Hope you're having an amazing Sunday, an incredible weekend, and indeed a wonderful, beautiful life. Today we'll keep on going with our latest app built with SvelteKit 2, Svelte 5 with runes, Gainzatron. But that's the implementation detail. What we really care about is that we're making a cool app for our client, and everyone is delighted with its view transitions, its cool design, the amazing programs. Well, we're getting there. We're making it better and better as we go along. And today we'll focus into doing images right, into doing images well, performant images, optimized images, working with SVGs. All of that we'll be doing today. We'll be scaling back the complexity from the previous episode. This is part 4 of the series. Part 3, we went heavy into the CMS integration, which I'm gonna show in a moment, and I worked a little bit more on it offline. But as predicted, as you try to understand what the app is actually about, as your client sees the app and tries to figure out for themselves, what should we really be pitching? Should it be the programming? Should it be something else? We don't really know. You need some time to reflect and think. So for now, we do have the programs, for example, but maybe that's not the unique selling point of the app. Maybe it would be having a workout exercise database and being able to search it nicely. Maybe being able to do recommendations based on how much time you have in the day or what's your level or whatever. Like all of those things we'll be thinking offline with the client. But in the meantime, we will be doing something very important, something that every app needs, something that can make every app look more unique, more on brand, and we'll be dealing with images. We already have some buttons that are using images, SVGs here, and I do think they do make the app look nicer. We have the cool toggle that you'll see once I go full screen here. The theme toggle here, I think that looks quite cool. That's also an image. And we'll be thinking and figuring out how to do it right. Indeed, the final solution will arrive at today when it comes to SVGs is a solution that was suggested in the chats for this series. It's a solution that I hadn't heard about and didn't exist last time we did a big series on making an app. So I'm excited to get it working today. Just if you'll allow me a quick double check to see if the stream is public, because every time there is no chat messages, I'm like, oh, hello, Son, nice to see you here. Son says, I've already touched on a huge issue, which is stopping to review the minimum features of any app. Yeah, it happens. There are so many important things for any app to be not successful, but working well, I suppose. Some of them are user-facing features. Some of them are backend, like technical choices that you need to make that aren't directly visible to the user, but they will affect it. And sometimes it's easy to just go on down the rails and go down a path and keep building things and making choices without stopping to reflect, wait a minute, what does this app actually do? We are collecting some stats on the buttons that people are actually clicking here, and there isn't that much interest in this button, the see this week's program button, which made us think maybe that's not the thing that people really want out of this one. Maybe the generate a program feature, that's something that people are clicking more, so maybe we should focus on that one. Or maybe people are just missing it because it's the same color. They see this week's program, it's the same color as the hero here, and they think it's part of the logo or something. That's why they're not clicking it, and they're clicking the middle one here. I don't know. When you don't have that many users, it's also hard to make decisions based on limited data, but it can guide you somewhere. And the important thing is to take the time and reflect what is the unique selling point of any app. In the meantime, another technical decision to decide that we'll figure out the day that any app needs is how do you handle images. I do think the images that we do have make the app look more professional and cuter, so we'll be focusing on that today. But let me do a recap of what we've done so far in 3 series. This episode should be a shorter one, very important subject, but less complex and more focused on we're doing one thing, we're doing images well today. So it won't be 5 to 8 hours. I expect a 1 to 2 hour live stream, hopefully, if it all goes well. But we do have a lot of functionality on those thanks to those 5 to 8 hour live streams that we've already done. So we have this homepage, we have like this cool on light and dark mode splash page that has a hero button, has gradients all over the place, looks nice. We have the sign up for updates button, so when we do figure out what the main product is going to be for this sample, we'll be reaching out to the people that have signed up. And indeed, there are a couple people that have signed up for this, so watch out. You'll get an email from us soon. And the big thing we did last time is the CMS integration. So this page, here's a program that everyone in the world is doing this week, is now talking to a CMS that we've configured with Sanity. Seen here, running locally. It only has a few exercises in, and it doesn't have the whole program of the week. I'll be doing those offline. I'll be asking the client to fill in those as well, because a big thing is the model of what a week is going to be looking at. Like, how do you represent supersets? How do you represent giant sets? How do you provide alternative sets, which is something that we thought is very, very important. Asking a few people that are into fitness and all of that, we found that people really want to see alternative exercises. They want to see the recommended one, and they want to see some alternative options, because sometimes you're not at home, sometimes you just don't like an exercise, sometimes you're not capable of doing an exercise due to some mobility issues, for example. So people really want to see alternative exercises for every single part of the program, but that means we need a way to reflect that on the schema. So we'll need to think about this for sure, but I have made a working version of what we initially imagined a workout program would be. So maybe I can even show live that in here, the lower one program, this one, the lower one day of the latest week, just has the squat as a focus block. And then we can add like a backup set of one exercise, because it's not a superset. And you can search nicely through your whole database of exercises, which now it's 3, but at some point it will be many. Maybe they'll need icons as well. And you can specify that you should do like 3 sets, and the reps should be exactly 5. And you should try to go all out on this one. Pause for about 2 seconds, which feels like 2 hours. And a feature value of someone doing this. A feature value is another big feature that people may want and that we've been thinking about. What would it be? Would it be Johnny's value for this week? Could be. Would it be some featured users that you can select which featured user you'd want to see here? Maybe one of your heroes. Would it be one of your friends? Would it be you, like past you, competing against your past self, or future you, the you want to be if you want to go into the powerlift meet like in 6 months or something? So many exciting options here that do mean the schema for all of this can be tricky. But lots of things to think about. Also, would you only be focusing on one person? Maybe you have like your deadlift hero and you have like your power clean hero or something, and they should be different people there. So lots of things, lots of complexity, and especially for the more complex data model things, you'd want to validate that people actually want it before you build them or lock yourself in. Anyway, we've added this block, the post-squat block. So in theory, this should update even though it's live. Well, there is some CDN at play, so we'll see later in the episode if this has indeed published. If I see this, well, I can actually see this. Locally, I have this app running. So if I've done this correctly, you can see that my local app doesn't hit the CDN. So we get the latest result every time, which helps like development and see things around, especially when you're messing with the data models. So quite cool, if you ask me. And that's about it. Those are the main things that we've built so far. And lots of things to learn when you start with a new app. Lots of boilerplate that you need to get through. But at some point, there is going to be like an avalanche, like a snowball building up, and then it's going to start working faster and faster. Right, so download PDF button, no one's clicked this. Which is a surprise to me, because usually people love CSVs. But again, not many people get to this page, so the funnel is smaller. All right, so time for today's agenda for new stuff, for new code. And a sip of coffee, if you'll allow this. So today is all about images, and a very popular and performant way to do images is by actually using SVGs. SVGs stand for Scalable Vector Graphics, and I find in programs like Adobe Illustrator that allow you to design things with Scalable Vector Graphics, with vectors, I do better than in programs that allow you to create raster images, like Photoshop, like Procreate, like all of those things. Like if you give a pencil to me and ask me to draw something and then take a picture, that's gonna end up as a raster image, and I'm really, really bad at that, but I'm a bit better when it comes to designing with vectors, maybe because vectors are really math, SVGs are really math. You're giving instructions to the computer to go straight for like 15 pixels, then curve for 4 pixels at this angle and this Bezier curve, and I'm better at math than I am at drawing. So it's a bit better for me, but it also means that it's very often more performant than a raster image, because instead of saying, all right, this pixel is this color, that pixel is that color, that other pixel is that color, you're just saying, follow this line for like the 10% of the screen, and then curve that much. And by those smaller instructions, you can create a gigantic image for every resolution. So that's the big thing with SVGs. That's why they're scalable vector images as well. Let's take a moment here in Figma, in my design tool of choice most of the time, to see how many live streams we've done this year. Like we've blown the previous year out of the water, which was bigger than the previous year as well. So that's quite cool. Not that many videos this year, but hey, you can't have everything. Anyway, you'll see that the Gainzatron logo is an SVG, and it's something that will be bringing in the app shortly. And you'll notice that even smaller here is a more reasonably sized SVG version of the logo that I can zoom in infinitely, and it will not pixelate, it will not lose resolution. So that's a big thing, a big win for SVGs. And because it is mathematical instructions, as much as you can say, keep going on this straight line for like 50% of the screen, and then it will scale without pixelizing. You can also say, you know what, this path that you're drawing, make it red, or make it green, or make it whatever color, and change it on the fly without needing to create different variations of the image. Just a small change in your instructions, which make SVGs really popular for animations when it comes to color, but even cooler animations like the one we have for the theme toggle here on the top right. As always, links in the description for everything, so you can go to gainzatron.com and actually toggle light and dark mode here and see the cool sun and moon animation for yourself. I do experiment with quite a few different neat theme toggle animations, dark and light, but this is my favorite one. This is the one I use the most. Hello Christian in the chat as well. I love that the wave hand matches my hoodie. How nice. Cool. So SVGs, they're mathematical instructions. Let's see how they look like in Svelte. So we could even get here in the sign up for updates section, let's say. Newsletter form. And one of the reasons I like Svelte is that it looks like a regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript a lot of the time, which does mean that we can just use SVGs inline here, and it's just gonna work. What I mean by that is let's on the fly create an SVG here. So whatever I type here, it's gonna end up here to the left. We can keep this thing a different span just to organize things a bit neater. But what I actually want to do here is define an SVG. And I can say that the viewport, the view box for this SVG, is going to start from 0 and go up to like 64 pixels or something like that. And in here, I can give all the mathematical instructions that I want to define this SVG. Let's see what Copilot will create for us. I'll be surprised. Let's see what it gives us. I think it's like a circle within a circle, but the color doesn't quite work. So if we say that the fill color for the SVG is like white. Oh, all right. Like ChatGPT being creative here, or GitHub Copilot, whatever it's using behind the scenes, being a bit creative here. And we should be able to even use CSS variables here. So we do have a foreground CSS variable. We should be able to use here. Maybe not. Too fancy for now. We may need to use it in CSS, not exactly here. So anyway, like as you can see, inside the SVG, we're saying take this path, and then it's very specific syntax that we won't be going into deeply, but it's all about keep going for this many pixels, then angle on a curve for this many pixels, then stop there and create another path. And just to make it a bit clearer, let's remove this neat icon that ChatGPT created. Hello, Kisara, how are you doing? And let's create a simpler one that I can understand better. A circle. So for a circle, you can define the center point on the x-axis. So you can say it's like 32 in the viewport from 0. The center point on the y-axis, which is 32 on the y-axis. And then you have to also specify the radius, how big you want the radius of the circle to be. So if you say 32 again, we should get a perfectly circular, I suppose, and perfectly filling circle within the viewport here. If we gave it a smaller radius, it would start at the center of the viewport again, but the circle itself would be smaller. And we can change the fill as much as we please. And in SVGs, you can also apply styles and classes and CSS essentially. So since the view box is this much, if we apply a class to say, well, actually, I want this to be like 164 width, then it would be contained further, or contained less or more, according to what we pass here. And this is the point where I wonder if I didn't specify the fill white, and I said that I want the fill here with the CSS class to be the foreground, then it would work. So this is looking into a CSS variable that's used in the foreground. But of course, the way we specified the foreground CSS variable, because we want it working with Tailwind, is just the HSL value. So it's just a few percent signs. But if you just use this CSS variable, it's just going to be 3 numbers and it's not going to be a particular color. So actually, let me fix what we were doing here. To relay the words because it was weird. we should be able to specify a fill. And if you want to use a CSS variable here, like foreground, make sure it's one that's actually a color. So foreground by itself is not a color. It's the hue, saturation, lightness values here. So that should work. I did it the other way. So it's the hue, saturation values. So if I use it here, then it works again. Or if I use like the brand, is that a real thing? What do we have here? We have primary. Let's use primary. Primary foreground should be kind of almost white orange. So even here you can use CSS variables, custom properties, as expected, but I was a bit lost because it is kind of weird that to accommodate for Tailwind, we have to specify these three numbers. I think this is going to change in the future. So working with SVGs in Svelte, you can pick up any SVG that you have defined from anywhere and just paste it into your the template part of your component, and it's just gonna work, which I think is pretty cool. But the question is, all right, I have like this icon. How do I bring it into SvelteKit? And that's what we're gonna do in the most, let's say, naive way possible, the level 1 way, which is still not a wrong way to do it, just not the most efficient way to do it. And a great way to start doing it. So let's say it's our designer that designed this barbell icon here, and he wants us to use it. What do? We have access to the Figma. We can export it as an SVG and put it on the desktop. Call it Gainzatron logo or something. And now that we have it there, we can open any directory of our app. One of the things we did last time was also transition this into a monorepo that has our CMS interface and the web app, which is SvelteKit. And let's say that in our SvelteKit app, in its source lib directory, let's have an icons directory. And in here, reveal it in Finder. And that's where I'm gonna drag and drop the logo from the desktop. I have done it. You can see it here. You can see that I can open it in VS Code because it's really mathematical instructions, or it's just instructions that happen to be human readable, pretty human readable, like not amazingly human readable, but kind of human readable as well. I can even save it and it will auto format it with prettier, but that's by the by. How do I use it instead of the circle here? Well, SvelteKit behind the scenes is using Vite. And you can see that you can import anything, any image as an image. Like you would other files. So if we go at the top of this component and say that we want to use the Gainzatron logo, and import it from $lib is where we've put it. Source $lib, we have an alias for this directory, which is $lib. Icons, Gainzatron logo. So we want to go to icons, Gainzatron logo SVG. It knows it's here, but it's not a component, so I'm gonna name it with lowercase. And then instead of the circle here, I can render an image element and have the source be whatever Vite imported as Gainzatron logo. and maybe give it like a width. And it's black on black, so you won't see it, but it's here. So we can resize it as much as we want as well. Everything. Cool. There you go. So it looks nice. It doesn't look like it's been pixelized, even though the viewbox width is only 24 pixels. Even now, where it's bigger than 24 pixels, it looks like there is no pixelation, so it looks good. But what do we lose with this method? If I wanted to change the fill now and make it be like red, I wouldn't be able to do it. So that's a huge limitation with importing it as an image. I cannot easily change the color of this, and also that means that I cannot animate the color as well, which could be a cool thing that you want to do. And you wouldn't be able to animate any of the other properties that you can animate in an SVG, which includes the paths. You can do some crazy things with how the paths are defined, as you can see from the toggle that we have here. So that's one way to bring the SVG icon in that your designer designed, and that's fine, but not the best way to do it. We'll move on to the next way right now. And again, getting things live is important. So doing it like that, no one is going to show up on your house and tell you off. Client is going to be happy because they'll see it on screen, but you'd be missing some of the features and points of working with SVGs. So to keep those things, then we can just create a SvelteKit, a Svelte component based on the definitions here. And we've seen that, well, if I were to just paste this into the form instead of this image element, would it just work? And the answer is yes, because Svelte understands HTML syntax. It's not like JSX that you encounter in libraries like React, where some of the properties are similar, some of the properties are different. There is more camel casing going on in the properties, like clip path in SVGs, like clip path, so you need to make a few small changes. In Svelte, you need to do nothing. It will just work. So you can't just paste it in. Let's create a Svelte component. By the same theory, if we go to source lib components and just create a Gainzatron logo.svelte and just paste this in. And then in here, I can use the Gainzatron logo. Make sure to remove this import because the casing is gonna confuse my editor. Gainzatron logo. I can magically ask VS Code to import it. Where did it go? Ah, here. Super high up. And then it will work the same, but the problem is, how do I change the variables? How can I do the same thing that I did before and say that I actually want the fill to be red? I cannot do it without a bit more extra work. Svelte components can take props, and that's essentially what we want to do here. We want to say, any prop that you can give to an SVG, I want you to be able to give into this component. And that means that we'd need to open a script tag. Maybe also make the W full so it will look bigger as soon as we make this right, and it will feel awesome. So let's create a script tag, and we want to make use of the prompts. And essentially what we want is to just spread all the props, spread everything we're given here. And the moment I do that, you'll see that we get the classes applied. But the way we've gotten this component from Figma, from the designer, it has a hard-coded fill in the path here, and a hard-coded fill in the background. So if I just remove this, then it will respect the fill that I've defined in this higher level, the SVG level. And does this actually do anything, this clip path? Maybe not. Yeah, so that doesn't actually need to be there. Something that will out when you're using a tool like Figma, which isn't necessarily like a vector illustration type of tool, it can result into some SVG that's a bit dubious. So keep an eye out for that. So that already works. In some other components, maybe for consistency, you've seen this called like rest props. In some other versions, before release versions of Svelte 5, the release candidate versions of Svelte 5, you couldn't do this. You couldn't just define the props here and spread them. You'd needed to destructure the rest of the props like this and then spread them. But now you can just do this. And if you want to keep the convention the same, then you can do that. We're using TypeScript. How do we know what this component actually takes? So if I try to pass in whatever here, then I would want my editor to tell me whatever is not a valid prop for this component you're trying to use. But because we haven't typed the props, anything goes. We can type it. We can say that the props are gonna be SVG element props, something like that, that I'll need to look up from other components. Because it's slightly different to the HTML components. So Svelte is exporting a type called SVG attributes from the Svelte packets. And for some reason on this one, you need to specify what type of SVG like it is here. It doesn't just default to event target, which I've never needed to specify this any further. Maybe someone in the chat knows why you need to specify it when you wouldn't specify it like this. In any case, if I actually say that the rest props implement or follow this props type, which is actually just this, then my editor should be able to say whatever is not a valid thing that you should be able to use here. Again, in real life, this will not crash your app, but according to your build step, it may tell you that you're trying to use something that's not actually used, and TypeScript will complain and blow up and tell you all about it. The reason I'm defining the props separately is that sometimes you would want your logo to have like a magic attribute here. So maybe you would want your logo to also implement whatever and use whatever here. And then you could be destructuring whatever out and then have some conditional logic here using this. But, you know, we're not going to do it. I'm just gonna be, I'm just showing this as an example of why you would you want to define things like that. If you just want to define it like this without the extra props, it's all fine. It's all good. It's all here to help you now and in the future, whatever looks right to you. Right, so also not specify the link, the fill. Another common thing to do here with SVGs is to specify that you want the fill to be the current color, which would then respect the text color. So the moment, like without us needing to define what the fill should be, the fill color will actually be whatever the rest of the text looks like. So that's another trick to be aware of, that very often we just want the icons to match what the text is. And that's why very often by default, when you define the SVGs, you may want the fill to be current color. And there are some automation steps that we may look into that do this for us without us needing to type stuff. Good. So we figured out how to do things very naively and slightly more cleverly. But now on our Figma, like our designer is saying that, oh, I've made a little change on the logo and you should download it. And it has like the gradient built in or whatever. They've done something clever with it. And again, would need to download this, which is fine. But also, we'd need to paste it into the app, convert it to an SVG, into an optimized SVG using a tool that I should have linked in the description called SVG OMG. You can paste your SVG markup here for any logo like this one. And it will actually give you a more optimized version of the SVG without all the trash that Figma may be adding, for example. Which could be that the unique names within the SVG, the IDs, would just be minified into being one letter. But other fluff is also taken care of using this tool. So you would be downloading the SVG, pasting it into your app, then pasting it into this awesome tool by Jake, then pasting that output back into the app, and then you'd still need to convert it into the Svelte component here, which is, you know, a reasonable amount of work, but still a lot of work that can be automated. And we'll be solving this by also using a library that gives us 1,000,000 or 200,000. It's so close to 1,000,000 that I should be specific, that it's not hyperbole. Like so many icons as well. So besides the custom icons you may want for your app, like the one with the gradient, you probably want some generic icons like the magic sparkles thing that signifies AI nowadays, maybe the Discord logo, maybe the eyeball, like all of these things. We can have all of them using a library called unplugin-icons, which is using Iconify behind the scenes, which you may have seen me use in previous episodes. So here, if I just search for like email, you can see that there are tons of variations of emails. There are quite a few icons that actually have a nice little animation here. And hello, Farangelo. Yes, CSS custom properties or CSS variables. Official name is custom properties, but I think everyone calls them CSS variables. They're super handy, and I love them. So in Iconify, shoutouts to the chat yet again for talking about this. You can search, you can use their awesome search and find various versions, open source versions of that icon that you may want to bring into your app. So maybe this one, email with heart, is the one we want. And they do have various ways where you can download this or copy it. So we could copy it to the clipboard, paste it into the SVG OMG tool here to clean it up further, even though it should be like cleaned anyway. And then paste it into our app and then create a Svelte component and then do all of these hoops that we talked about. Or we could just use this library called unplugin-icons. And just one more thing with Iconify, it is actually a tool that has a plugin for Figma. So sometimes I do the same thing here where I can search for email inside Figma and get the same exact results because it's using the same exact source, and actually be like, oh yeah, let's use the this one, the pixelated one from here, and then you have it in Figma. So it's something that you can sync with your designer as well, and then be sure that whatever icon is available in Iconify will be easily available in your app as well. So let's see how we go about bringing it in specifically in Svelte. To start with, and then we'll extend to use a custom icon like the one with zone, the one with the gradient, let's say that one. Maybe another thing to talk about, last thing, is that you've noticed that there are icons already in the app, these things. I've been using another library called Lucide that is quite good. Let's see the places we've looked into it. Remember that you do need to do the direct imports like this for your development experience to be better, because the firstly documented way to use the icons does require quite a lot of tree shaking to happen in the end. And while Vite is trying to bring in the SVGs, the updates are going to be quite slow. Anyway, that's by the by. Lucide is essentially just one icon set over the hundreds of icon sets that exist here. With unplugin, you can even use the Lucide icon set in your app. We're using it because it's one of the recommended or example icon sets that Svelte and Svelte is using, along with Radix UI. But with unplugin, we can use any icon set, anyone we like. Not very well for this one, I guess. Remove the pre-parameter. Anyway, tons of them. Literally hundreds. Some of them animated. Well, not so animated ones here. It made my screen kind of sluggish. Anyway, that's the one we're going for, unplugin-icons. Let's bring it in. It's available for many frameworks, including the ones that work with Vite, which means including SvelteKit as well. But it's general knowledge of how you'd be able to bring it in. So, they are saying that we need to install the plugin itself, and also we can install the whole icon set, which has every single image, like the 200,000 images as well. So it's a big download, but it does our build tool should only, will 100% bring only the ones we actually use in the app. So we won't be bringing in 120 megabytes, shipping it to the user for nothing. It's gonna be fine. But I'm curious if it's gonna have that the developer experience problem where the way that it magically tries to find the icon from this use library. Maybe every time you save it's a bit slow. I don't think it is, but it's something we'll find out. So we're using Vite, but we're using Vite through SvelteKit, so it should be the same, I guess, the options here. It's just that you can specify a compiler here. That means that you'll be able to end up with Svelte components. Awesome. Right, so two things to bring in, which they don't say again here in the framework specific instructions, which is fair enough. Let's go over it again. We can go to the terminal and bring in the library itself. And then optionally, what they suggest, it should be the same. You can bring in every single icon set that they have by bringing in this iconified JSON library. And indeed, my tool is saying that I shouldn't be doing this at the root of the repo. I should be going into the SvelteKit app to do it. So I have, and I'm gonna run this command again. Cool. We're in. So now we should go to the framework specific configuration and find our Vite config. So Vite config here. The only plugin we have now is SvelteKit. We'll add one for optimizing images later in the episode. But for now, the one we want to add is the Vite version of the unplugin-icons plugin. So we're putting this. It looks like we want our last plugin to be this, and give it an option to compile, to use the Svelte compiler, which compiles Svelte components, I suppose. Great. I imagine this sets up path aliases, as they like it here, automatically. So it looks like if you use this little wavy approximate caret symbol, then it will alias to the specific component in unplugin-icons, which makes me think that the DevX is going to be fast, because it's the same thing we're looking for Lucide. It's not destructuring out of a huge object, it's just directly looking into this icon specifically. So that's great. But let's see here an example that they may have. So they're specifying, so that's quite different. That virtual thing that they have here is quite different. No instructions as well. In the vit config, it does say compiler, Svelte, and that's it. Nothing in this. In the TS config, any path aliases? No. So all fine out of the box. HTML not have anything. Right, so in this page, they have like this virtual thing, which they don't mention in the docs. Virtual. Where would they talk about this? So in Vite you can do this, but they're suggesting this approximate icons one. So they should update the example, I suppose. And you approximate icons and then get inside a collection and then use an icon name. So let's see. In Iconify, for example, we had the email one that we liked. Wow, with the animated icons, the app is so slow here. Let's do this. So the collection is MDI, email heart outline is the name, and this actually has this. The unplugin icons way to import this. So will this just work? Let's see. In our newsletter form, we don't want the logo, actually. Copied it in the wrong way. I don't want to specify the size, so great. Bring it in without any parameters. And is this set up for me? It looks like it's not. So how would we set it up? And would use it like this. Oh, it does work. Size 8 or size 16 or W full. It takes all of the page, but it doesn't actually increase the size of this. All right, without the size, it's the default size, I suppose. If we call this display flex, got 1. And I suppose we can still use, can we not? So it has the fill set as the current color, it looks like, but specifying the fill directly doesn't actually change it. What's it if you do like stroke red? It's actually stroke. Yeah, all right. So looks like it has both fill and stroke, but for some reason the fill is not touched just by passing the class here. Interesting. So you have to do it like the text way. It's fine. That's fine. And they have a link to the documentation as well, which is nice. Fill. Anything else they say? Nothing much specifically for this, for the common icons you can use from the library. But yeah, it looks like it just works. So why is this flipping out? Let's reload VS Code just in case it's VS Code that needs to get on with the times, which could be likely. But it's not. So there is no instruction to what this resolves to. There must be something we have to do. I imagine that the plugin here is setting it up so Vite will know the moment you start an import like this, it's actually going to look into the library. So Vite knows what to do, but VS Code is flipping out. So how do you resolve this? The TypeScript thing? This TypeScript support doesn't actually do anything. Type declarations. Here you go. For SvelteKit, in the up2d.ts, which is what I searched for because I had a feeling, all we need to do is import the Svelte type definition from here. So it feels like with this imported, then now VS Code knows that this is a thing. There is the kind of sad thing that it seems like the definition is $icon star, which does mean that if I make a typo here, then this will break at runtime, I suppose. Or after I've saved, instead of my editor telling me that this doesn't exist. But I get why they're doing this. It's not ideal. But I always like it when my editor is telling me this is not a real thing and you've made a typo and you shouldn't save this. But the way they've defined how the icons library works is a very generic. If you use the approximate, the squiggly icons slash thing, anything goes. So no matter where you've made the typo, it's going to pretend that whatever you're getting out is actually going to be a component. Which is fine. Like again, I understand why they did it. Not ideal, not going to be the end of the world. Vite, if you did make a mistake, the build will break, DevX will break. So it's not that much of a problem. I guess it does mean I don't have autocomplete. That's the more realistic, like, developer experience problem. That that is kind of solved by the Iconify website being good. So to use like another one here, they have the unplugin-icons version, so I just copy it from here every time from the website. And that's it. I wonder if there is a VS Code plugin for unplugin. No. Because I don't want to go to a different website and do all of this. It wants to see my clipboard. Wow. Never seen that on a website before. Neat. Anyway, I shouldn't visit this app right after using one password and copied my passwords. But other than that, cool website. I guess it's not showing it again because it knows that it's what I have on the clipboard, and if I press it again, then it will save. So that's a crazy feature. Some engineer really had fun with this, and it's like, well, I'll only show it if it wasn't already clipped into it. But people love confirmation, so why not show the notification many times? Let's an engineer for sure. Anyway, unplugin icons, I like how it works. I like the cutoff zip. I'll keep using it. I'll migrate the Lucide versions into unplugin offline. But first, let's see let's see it working with a custom icon that we have. Or that we want to use. Farangelo says, for our information, Svelte uses the JS style API to set property values in DOM elements. The newer CSS API and current browsers should make everything faster and give us type safety for property values. So that's again on the CSS vars situation, where maybe at some point you're trying to define a CSS var in an element, and even I don't remember, did I call it foreground, did I call it background, did I call it primary foreground, did I call it whatever, and I have no help from type definitions for anything. And it sounds like with the newer CSS API, I would be getting exactly that and actually know that I can specify this variable here on this level. Am I using a lot of CSS variables? So an example of a custom icon here with Svelte, you shouldn't be afraid to use them, is the theme toggle one, as you can see. And I'm using a few CSS variables here for the easing and the duration of the animation to make it consistent with other places where I have animations in the app. But nothing else, because it is using the current color of the text to actually be the correct text color here. So nothing too fancy here, nothing that would particularly help me, but we'll find examples. This is CSS properties and custom attributes. I should talk about them more. We've only briefly talked about them really and used the SADCN variables, common variables that they suggest and they are using, but I have my own opinions on these. Daisy UI, for example, has different opinions than my own and SADCN. So we should talk about what these values are in more detail, how to set them dynamically with JavaScript, all those things in the future. But for now, next agenda item, let's see what we got. Let's use our own custom icon. So our designer is a creative person too. They are using the Figma plugin to use Iconify to use the exact image that we should be using as well. And then at the moment we bring in something, let's import this as a new frame or whatever. We can actually see that it's the IC icon set, and it's called it's called two-tone voicemail. So you can easily find it in with the unplugin website and use it with that copy-paste way that we've done. But at some point, the designer is going to be like, I've actually designed the logo for your app. This is custom. This is not something you can find in the icon set. Maybe it uses like a weird gradient or something that is kind of hard to apply. And the question is, how do we bring this in? We've shown the way of, we can copy this, save it into our repository in our app, bring it in as an image, which is the level 1 way, or create a Svelte component out of it, which is the level 10 way. And that's actually the way that I've done it here. But let's see how we can keep things in common with how we are doing SVGs elsewhere in the app, which is now with unplugin-icons, and see how we can set up unplugin-icons with our own custom icons. The quick aside on the CSS attributes here, and something that I will write in my notepad as well. Houdini CSS for more on this. I think I've seen, embarrassingly enough, a TikTok about it. So that's something for the future. As always, I love investigating and then showing things that people are excited about and think are gonna be useful in the future. Which is one of the reasons that we're using unplugin icons today, because I didn't know of it. I'll say again, I have used Iconify before and I was like, not thrilled with the way it worked and a few of the hoops that you needed to jump through to make it work with server-side rendering, but unplugin seems to just work, and that's awesome. Let's see how we can make it work with custom icons now. Did I add a timestamp? I did. So let's get to it. Let's say, let's go through the whole flow again. We're exporting this on the desktop, and let's say we have like this icons directory. Maybe not components, lib icons. I do like the lib icons here. This one doesn't have the gradient, so I will go to Finder to actually find the new one and paste that one in here just for a moment. Copy it, paste it here. Again, I will run trace through SVG-OMG. I don't think unplugin-icons runs it through the SVG optimizer by itself, unless you set something up, so I'll just do it manually. If you only have to do it some of the time, it's fine. But now we want to skip the step where I create a component for this as well component manually. We want to make unplugin create this Svelte component for us. Let's see how that works. Do I have the link here? It's still custom icons, plonk. So in our config, we can specify custom collections, I suppose. And the key for the custom collections value, which is an object, it's going to be whatever we want, sure. Where we can specify each individual SVG, like the account is going to be this SVG. You can put it here in line, which would be a bit crazy. Or you can have a method that uses Node.fs to read the file, which is more sensible. You can bring them in from a website. Awesome. There must be a way where maybe with a glob pattern or something, I can say everything that is in one directory. Let's see. Glob. This is a glob. That's global. Star. Where would it have star? That's going to be too many places. Icons / star. No. I guess like does Node.fs nowadays have a glob import? There must be. All right, let's do it this way first. Let's do this way first. And then we'll read up on FS. Oh, file system icon loader. There you go. Oh, here we are. They provide a loader where you can specify where your assets are, and then you can even make it so it will it can do whatever. So it's gonna import the whole file here, and its file you're gonna do any transformation you want. They are showing a common one. I guess this is where you could manually bring in the SVG optimizer library and run the import through SVG-O, or you could just do what they suggest, which is import, make it so every SVG starts with the field current color, which would make it respect what the text color in that section of the website is. So that's quite interesting. So this is what we want. We want to go to our vit config. And we want to use that loader, file system loader, to say that we have a custom collection here. Custom collection, which I suppose we're gonna call Gainzatron. Or you could call it brand if you want it to be common across projects. Unique. I don't know. Let me know what name you'd be using here. And then you actually call this method. So one way would be to say, all right, the logo, it's gonna be like this, SVG, paste it in here, or use the file system loader to actually load it from the file. But what we're actually gonna do is use this file system icon loader and say that we're gonna be bringing in, it says here assets icons, which kind of makes sense, I suppose, since it's gonna be the plugin that takes care of importing this thing. It doesn't really matter where we put them. We don't need them to be inside lib to have the convenient $lib alias. But where does it make sense to put it? Maybe just source icons, I guess. So in source icons, and then you can even run a method here. I wonder if we can not run the method and just say whatever you find there, it's yours. Cool. So the question now is, how do we use this? My guess would be that we just do an import from approximate icons, and then whatever key we gave, and then whatever the name of this file is. So without the suffix, so Gainzatron logo. Let's see, run logo here, and indeed it's put in. Nice, beautiful. And we can resize it as needed, because this one just happens to be one that has a gradient. It will not actually apply the color, but if it was any other favicon, any other icon, and I guess you should decide with your designer for consistency. You should tell them always design them on black, and then you can do a replace for wherever you see like 000, or this, replace it with current color, for example. Always give it this much padding so it will look quite even with the other colors you have. There are some guidelines for consistency as well. Hello, what name in the chat? And great question by Farangelo. Does using unplugin-icons add much to the bundle size, or does it take out unused content? So it doesn't add to the bundle size. One of the first steps we did was bring in the library that has all the icons that are 120 megabytes. I don't know if this is accurate, it may be even more than that. So it's definitely not adding all of this into the bundle size. And from what I imagine with this alias here that they're doing, is that they're not bringing in the whole library and then shaking out, like shaking the unused parts. I think this alliance means that it directly only brings in the one thing that you're targeting to begin with. Kind of like what we've said with the way we should be using Lucide as well for better DevX. So in any other place where we're importing the heart icon from Lucide Svelte, we are directly targeting and importing the heart icon here. With Vite and how Lucide Svelte works, you could also be importing the heart icon like this, but that will cause the thing that Farangelo is talking about, where doing it like this actually during development imports the whole huge object with every icon that Lucide has, and then shakes out the ones that you didn't use. So if you've only used 10 out of like 20,000, then it's gonna seek out the 19,990 out of them, which is not ideal, and you would see the difference during dev. Like every time you save, even you would see that it may be a bit slower than you would have liked. So that's why the recommendation when using Lucide Svelte is to directly hand down this, so it will only get this file. The way that unplugin seems to work with this alias makes me think that they're doing the last bit. They're having you target just the one file that you are importing. So without a 3-second step, you're still sipping into the app the least amount possible. But it's not clear to me, and I think I'm 99% sure they're not doing, is they're not doing any SVG optimization for you. And that's why I did use the SVG UI here. But there is the SVGO CLI that you could integrate with or have it run in this step in unplugin SVG replace. So with the file system icon loader, you could have every SVG that you've loaded, you can run it through SVGO and optimize SVGs there. You can do all sorts of cool things for optimization. But the big thing is you don't want to ship 120 megabytes of unused icons to the user, and that's not the case, which is great news. And what name I'm doing well? How are you doing? It's Sunday. It's a lovely sunny day that's getting a bit more cloudy, but not dark rain clouds, so it should be fine the rest of the way as well. Right, so custom icon imported. The suggestions that they have is to do the current color trick and not specify height and width, which is my preferred way to do SVGs as well. So I specify the viewport for how big the SVG should be and not directly the width and height, since I can affect that when I'm using it as a component. And I think that's it. All right, so last part is going to be on Raster images today. So we're flying through. Hope you're having fun. I certainly am. Offline, I will replace Lucide with everything. Maybe. So animated heart. Can we quickly see how that would look? I have the pulsing heart thing here. We're using Lucide for this, so let's see how would it look like. Incorrect website. Heart. Oh, a two-tone heart. Some of them have unmessaged, which is neat. Oh, this one I've used in the Godot video game as well, which is quite nice. Which one looks nicest? The ones that have color and shading, of course, look nicer. But, oh my god, like anatomically correct heart. Don't want to see this. For sure. Pip icons, pixel art icons. Neat. Medical heart. Heart as a token. Memory, is that for like a memory game? Alright, spoiled for choice here. What's the, is there like, there is the Lucide one. This must be here. So the one I'm using now is this, right? Let's just use this one. And bring it in like this. So now it should immediately look the same, right? The answer is no. How? Ah, yeah, we saw this. It's because they are doing something weird with the fill. So that's not really respected. That's something to keep in mind, for sure. Interesting. So for some reason, I cannot directly affect the fill. There must be something that I'll need to do, I suppose. I wonder what they're doing. Do they just not specify fill anywhere? Or do they specify that level where I cannot touch it? Anyway, so this should have just worked the same, but it doesn't. You can see that when I bring in directly, the fill is actually being able to be overwritten. So, weird. Lucette for unplugging is a perfect task for ChatGPT. For sure, I think that's that would be the use case for what did they call it? Is it ChatGPT code spaces? I've asked to be in the beta, but it's the one where you describe the feature or pretty much essentially go to your repository, raise an issue, and then describe. I want everywhere where I use SVG icons, Lucite icons, like here, I want to use the unplugin icons like this. And then supposedly the GitHub ChatGPT solution there is gonna raise a PR for you that's gonna be breaking up the steps, doing the commits to actually do this, which you can review in the end. But yeah, that'd be something where you spend like a bit of time defining what the spec is, but it should be quite easy to see if you did a good job, and it should be a prime use case of where the LLM should be able to do the job here. But as we saw, this is like the unexpected one. This is the one place where the result couldn't be what you expect, because the PR would say I've done this, and I'd say that looks about right. But in reality, like the effect wouldn't be what I expected, just because of the way fills work with unplugged icons. So that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. Like, would we ever get an AI that would tell us, I did it, but keep in mind that I needed to change this everywhere. And I do have a Copilot chat here, but I don't know if it would do it for every component, every file that I have in the repository. So I know that it would be able to just do it for this one. And then maybe I can keep copy pasting the prompt and then pressing the button to replace the file. But I'm interested in the one that will find like the 50 files that I don't even know that I've imported things there for me. Because now I would need to like search for Lucide and be like, all right, it's not that many files. And then ask ChatGPT switch from Lucide to the equivalent unplugin one. And then press the button to bring it in. I should try Cursor. Like I keep seeing on threads that people are building some crazy apps with like minimal programming knowledge, and the help of Cursor. There is like one popular creator that is doing a Swift app with Cursor. And I'm like, great, that'd be my use case. I know I know some programming in various languages, not that much in Swift. If I can have a Copilot there, that'd be good. That'd be neat. But when asking Claude directly, I have found that Claude seems to be a bit better at answering programming questions than ChatGPT at the moment, for sure, which is the default one for Cursor. And just having it in the editor is much better than needing to go to the website and ask the prompt there, for sure. Anyway, lots of cool stuff. The way we write software is changing, and I like being here to experience it. And you know, maybe like there is work there that may mean I'm affecting it in some way. Who knows? Maybe I'll talk about it one day. Right. So SVGs, awesome, infinitely scalable. At some point, you just want a nice image as well. Son says a couple Xcode plugins for copilots, and there was a breakthrough in Xcode 16. I think Apple themselves introduced some copilot functionality with the latest Xcode. I wish Xcode was better. I don't know. I keep seeing people that are using other tools instead of Xcode, and it takes a lot of setup, but in the end it feels like it's worth it. But what I really want is like, come on Apple, like make it be a first-class experience in Xcode. You can do it. You have created so many great tools. You create great machines with the Macs and the MacBooks because you own the whole ecosystem. Like you own the software and the hardware, and you make a great box, superb hardware. Why can you not do the same with the coding software? You have engineers. Anyway, just laughing to myself. Anyway, let's go to raster images. Yes. So when you take a photograph, what you end up with in this day and age still is a raster image that does get pixelated if you zoom in too much. But looks cool. There are quite a few marketing websites where I am sold because they have an image of the product in action. And it looks nice, it looks slick, it looks minimal. I like the UI. It's one way to sell me on your product. So maybe here we'd have like a look at the programming without you actually needing to click around and see how it is. And having it be an image that we've created in like Photoshop or whatever, give us a chance to make it look a bit better than in real life, like focus on the interesting information for the user, like a specific case. Or show data for a user that has been using the app for 6 months. That's something that you wouldn't want the user to play the app with 6 months and then discover later how a chart could look like. That's something you need to tell them. It's going to look awesome. It's going to look like this. So there is functionality, there is utility in being able to embed images. Sometimes with newsletters, you have like a cool banner image as well. And some says GitHub repos that have the screenshots and README, definitely a selling point. One of the tips when I created an open source library like many years ago, maybe 7 years ago, was include a GIF in the README, like show it in action, show it how it looks. It was anyway, it doesn't really matter. But great tip. People want to see things in action. They want to see how it works. If you can make an animated little video that shows what the tool is doing, all the better. But sometimes just an image. It's still worth 1,000 words. So use it as much as possible. But be conscious of the amount of stuff you're shipping to the user, which is going to be the next chapter. This chapter is, let's bring in like an image to put in the background to this, I suppose. Why not? And since we're using unplugin, let's go to Unsplash and search for like a little photo here. And let's say search for barbell. Should we advertise Rogue? This one is quite nice. This one, a bit too much. Anyway, it doesn't really matter which one we're gonna be using. Man, fist bump. Let's use this one. Save this image. Download free. Just downloads it. Doesn't ask how big it should be. You can shout out this person or attribute them. Cool. I haven't used Unsplash in a while. It's gonna be similar to the level 1 way where we've used SVGs. But maybe this time wherever we have the newsletter form component, I'm gonna drop that image in. Go to VS Code. I've dropped it in to this level. I can just call it newsletter BG. And in the newsletter form, we've seen how this can be done. We can say images from newsletter BG, bring it in. And should it be in this level actually? could be here. Take it back. So in this level, we could just say actually image with this source. It's gonna be a newsletter. It's gonna be surrounding things. It's doing all sorts of crazy things. And bam, we have an image. That's not quite what I imagined though. Copilot did a very classic thing. What I'd want it to be is a stack grid layout, which we have used somewhere. We've used for this, for Gainzatron. Great. So for our hero, we've used a stack layout, which has a gradient, has a minimum height, has tons of cool things that we're gonna steal. But instead of having the gray background, so this part is the gray background here, you can see, we'll have an image there. So that's my plan for now. Hope you like it. So let's say that this section, it's gonna be at least 33, 35 vertical height. It's gonna have this image, and then it's gonna have the newsletter form. Sure. And we want this not to actually have like the full width. We want to have some margin. Or maybe not. What do we want? Not sure. And we want to place the content center. Great. But we want this to cover like as much as possible. So let's have a look. There must be like a background size cover or something. Although it's not the background. This image. Something applied to an image class. Aspect ratio, not really. Here. Fit picture, it says. That's not the one we want. I must have done this like so many times and it's escaping me. We do want the width to be full, and we want the height full as well. So that's for sure. How do we specify the aspect ratio? How do we specify the aspect ratio? Object fit. There you go. Object fit cover. And then tell when to apply this. It's kind of thing. I was trying to find. Just object cover. Anything else we may want? Maybe not. Not straights, not anything. We may want to pixelate it and make it slightly different. If I don't do this, what happens? Nothing. Cool. Now, like, we'd want to like desaturate this. Maybe the background of this card. We want to be a bit transparent. Not too much. Maybe we want to pixelate the background, but blur. We've done the same thing for the header. The backdrop blur thing is what we're talking about. Oh, and can do backdrop. Can make the backdrop more saturated as well. Would be cool. But where's the backdrop blur one? There you go. You can kind of see it. We're doing like this glass effect. It's kind of nice. We also make it sepia. Does it look alright? Let me know. I think it does. But I would want the background like, to pixelate it even further. So let's look at some filters that they just have. Is it sepia? Is it like pixelate? What do you have there? We can unsaturate it a bit or make it sepia. Let's see. Like I won't spend too much time at this CSS rabbit hole as usual. Saturate 50. Can actually do anything? Not really. And sepia. Reminds me of like sunset. Feels kind of nice. So yeah, that's like way too big. What should we say? Do we need minimum height? Probably not. Maybe yes, not sure. Tailwind 4. I have tried it way back in the day. Is it still in alpha? I don't like that. I do like it overall. I do like that it's more CSS based and less tailwind config.js based. So you don't have like a JSON configuration file, JavaScript configuration file. I do like that you just have CSS and it's more based on CSS variables and all of that. I don't like that they hadn't already allowed you to use dark mode, set up dark mode by specifying a da theme. That should be the standard. Why are you doing the dark class? So configuration for the theme is what's stopping me from showing it from here. But overall, I do love the Tailwind theme for sure. Like whenever possible, I use the CSS Adam has wrote for me instead of writing my own classes and stuff. So I do like Tailwind. Tailwind 4, it seems technically it allows them to do a few things to make the compile times faster and all of that. I like that the configuration is more CSS based, but that's about it. Officially released this week. Oh, they didn't tell me. So yeah, I could give it a go. Can only imagine if it's officially released, they must have dark mode, customized dark mode support. I'll have a look. Maybe we'll look into it next episode. Right, so I said not too much on the rabbit hole. Too late. If I actually put some margin here, what happens? up and down. Yeah, so that looks kinda right. So how do you apply Frangel's color scheme versus data theme? How do you apply the color scheme if you don't base it on some attribute? So in my CSS, when the data theme is light, I apply the light color scheme. And when the data theme is like dark, I apply the dark color scheme. Or if you had like the burgundy or like the Dracula or something like that, then you apply the color scheme that's appropriate for like the Dracula theme or whatever you call it. But I haven't heard of a way where, like, I have never encountered a place where you just specify the color scheme and then based on the color scheme you apply the CSS variables that you want. If that's what you're talking about, that sounds quite interesting to me. Huh, I need to reflect on that. Light dark, I remember it's like this, but it seems like that's again some homework for me to catch up on. So light dark, you are specifying it as a method, so that's interesting. It's something that I'm not privy to. I need to catch up. Thanks for the tips and the suggestions. Looks like Son is saying that Tailwind released the beta version. I hope it has dark mode support in the way I like it. Because I like Tailwind because 90% of the opinions are the way I like them, align with my opinions. And that's like one of them where it doesn't actually align. So whenever, the more it aligns with my opinions, the more I would like it, obviously. And when the threshold, when it's below a threshold, I'm very, very happy to use it. If it was 51% opinions I don't like, then I wouldn't be using it. I wouldn't be that happy to use it. But as I've said, when we started this series, I do not understand developers that hate Tailwind. I think it's quite funny to make fun of people that hate Tailwind. Because I've never seen a valid reason to hate Tailwind. We've talked about it here before. A common reason is that it makes developers unlearn CSS, which I think is invalid. With Tailwind, with a nice editor, you can use a Tailwind class, and then you highlight the class, and it actually tells you what it is applying. So, oh, here's some exposure on the HSL. What's that about? Here's some exposure to CSS variables. What's that about? There are some Tailwind classes that feel like they're doing one thing, but actually because CSS is weird, are actually applying 2 rules or 3 rules. So you hover over and you see, oh, actually, we need to apply 2 rules to make this effect happen. That's cool. The Tailwind documentation is a great example of some things you can do with CSS. So you can visualize it there, search it, find how you applied the class. If you want to learn more, you highlight it on your editor, you see what's actually applied behind the scenes if you don't want to have a look here. And therefore, I think it's teaching more people more about CSS than any other solution. So I don't know. Anyway, enough with the Tailwind tangent. We're doing some things with the images here. How do I pixelate the image? I guess I can bring it in as a different version. So let's just talk about that. I do. Whoa, this gets so big. This must have a maximum height. So last thing here. Ooh, it's not actually contained. How? Interesting. Have I unlearned all of my CSS? in any case, this will have to do for now. I think that's kinda what I actually wanted to do here. So that feels all right. But in any case, let's move on with our lives and talk about, all right, I'm importing this image. It looks cool. It looks kinda cool. But it's just a JPEG, which isn't the end of the world, but it could be more performant. We have seen that on smaller devices, it's actually served in a smaller size. So on this one, let's see, we can inspect the image and find that it's being rendered at 436 width. Well, here it's rendered at 2000 width, but in either case, we're importing this exact image. Which is 3500 pixel wide and is 1 megabyte big. So it's nice to make your app look cool, but it's not nice to ship 1 extra megabyte to your users with no real reason. And there are tools to optimize images in SvelteKit, and the one we're going to configure now is SvelteKit enhanced image. That is going to do a lot of the things that we could do manually as well, which is use a pixel element and have various versions of our images prepared for it according to the viewport width, according to whether it's a retina display or not. But this tool, when we're working with an image we can commit to version control that is imported by Vite, it will be doing all those variations for us. So we don't need to manually create the 1000 pixel wide version of this, the 400 pixel version of this, the 2x 400 version of this, if it's a mobile device, small mobile device, but on a retina display. This tool is gonna do everything for us, and that's why we're gonna install it. So back into our terminal and the web app, the SvelteKit app, we want to npm add this SvelteKit enhanced image. SvelteKit ecosystem thing. Hello, Mike, in the chat. Great to see you here. We're at the final step, optimize images. We worked with the vector images, which are great. And also, to keep in mind, you could create a vector image version of this, but it wouldn't be optimized at that point. At that point, to give the mathematical instructions to recreate this image, you'd essentially need to go pixel by pixel. And in order to have them be mathematical instructions, it would result in a bigger SVG than it would in a good, in a nice performant raster image format, like WebP. I keep clicking here and it keeps zooming. I don't want to keep zooming. Anyway, we've brought this in and unpicked Svelte. Haven't tried it. Is it like Unsplash, bringing image from Unsplash? Could be. But it feels like we'll need to go to our Vite config yet again and bring this in. It's interesting that these documentations are saying to bring this in first before the SvelteKit plugin. Don't know if it matters, but it's the same logic. We want Vite to be doing something extra when we're importing something specific. So the icons plugin is having Vite do something extra whenever we're importing things with the approximate squiggly icons. And this plugin, the enhanced images one, is going to tell Vite to do something extra whenever we're trying to import an image. Image enhanced for URLs. Yeah, I've tried the unpick in the past. I think I've tried it in a live stream as well. Now that you mention, like my mind locked in to what it actually was. But now we're on version control images as well. And we can just use enhanced images just by using the new enhanced image element that becomes available once we've changed this config and brought in this library. So in our newsletter form, or wherever we're importing an image, it is actually our root page here. Much like we're bringing in this image, we need to change nothing other than the element. So we're going to use the enhanced image like this. And bam, it breaks. But why? All right. So the moment we've imported it like this, we need to actually change the import slightly and say, instead of just bringing it in as an image, this enhanced image element expects an object essentially. And the way to tell it to import any image, anything that you think is an image, as the object that the enhanced image needs, is to add the query parameter enhanced at the end. So the moment we do that, it works. It just works. And this being now an object means that it has instructions to be brought in various different ways. You'll see that instead of just having the one image element that we had before, we actually have a picture element that inside has quite a few different images brought in. So it has images in the most efficient format currently, a VIF, in the WebP format, which is also quite efficient, and a JPEG version, which is what we started with, but it also took care to create smaller versions of the image and retina smaller versions of the image as well. So according to the viewport size, this should already be something smaller loaded. So we should be loading this AVIF image by default and not this one, which is actually huge. But both ourselves going hard as usual. You quit your job. Congratulations. I hope great things in the future are coming. It's the season to do it, I think. Engineering everywhere is popping off, I believe. But also great things to work on by yourself or by finding clients. Lots of people want still to bring in some LLM flavor to their ideas. And there's still space to create your own LLM flavor tool with something. Right, so what else? By default, they have some sensible defaults on what type of images to create. If you specify some parameters in the enhanced image, it will create smaller images here, or if you specify widths and heights. So let's say we do know that the biggest this image would get. Maybe we wouldn't mind, even if it was a bit pixelated. So we could say that the biggest we want this image to be is as big as this element is. So 655. And even before the optimize tool, like the thing to prevent layout shift and all of those things, would have been to specify what the width should have been. Was it 655? Don't specify it here. So let's try one other examples. Let's say that the sizes, the maximum we want it to be, is the maximum of what this container gets, which is 653 or 4. 655, let's say. So the biggest we want is 655 maximum, or 100 viewport width. For Retina devices, this is going to be doubled for us. Let's see how it would look. Now, if we look at this image, the minimum. Again, we want the minimum of these two. And we do want to stretch it. But anyway, that's something to figure out offline, I suppose. What's the max container width? Maybe that's the thing that I'd want to check. Tailwind containers, container. It says 100%, which is not true. Right, 1536. So let's say the maximum possible is going to be this. And just by this, just by specifying this, the image that will actually be loading is going to be smaller than the one we've committed, which is like 3,500,000 pixels. Because we're saying this is the maximum possible. Anyway, maybe that's something to drill into later episodes. You can specify the widths in a different way, not just with the sizes here, something we've shown in the past, by adding some parameters here in the end, like, oh, I want the width to be like this specific number, and so on and so forth, which would allow me to do the pixelized trick. So maybe that's the one we want. But you may see that TypeScript is complaining because by default, this thing understands the query parameter for enhanced, but you'd need to specify something else. And what I kind of like doing, which I don't think they've implemented already, is just to search for enhanced at the end of an image import. But that's something that we'll get to some other time. So 655 is what I said here. There you go. So it pixelates a little bit, but I think in a decent way. Maybe blur is the thing that we want. Just blur. There you go. So the moment you blur it, then you'll never be able to see the pixelation. Maybe you'll only blur it in a specific size. So here where it's actually crisp, you don't blur it. But when you start going into a bigger breakpoint, then you do the blur effect. Anyway, lots of design things to think about. It looks crisp here, not crisp here. I want the border to always look nice and crisp. But again, something to figure out offline. Lots of things to think about and do for the next episode. I don't think we'll be going into authentication just yet, but it is one of the following episodes. Tailwind 4, maybe I'll look into it a bit more. Both are great news about going further into the interviews. FinTech is always, I think, quite fruitful. So, and as always, like you just need one acceptance. It doesn't matter how many you don't get, you just need the one. But lots of thought there. And even though it wasn't a long live stream today, definitely my brain is slightly fried. So we'll need to start calling it. We'll need to do the recap and call it a stream in this smaller episode. So let's see. In just a couple hours today. We did some important things in our Gainzatron app. We've worked with SVGs. We figured out a better way to bring in SVGs. We've used a new library called unplugin. New to me, suggestion from the comments. And I've investigated and played around with it and thought that it was nice and awesome, performant and fast. What do you want? So we've used it to bring in both any icon from 200,000 icons that they have without shipping 200,000 icons to the user, only shipping the ones that we've actually used. Great. And custom icons that our designer has designed in Figma or any other tool. So we've learned about working with SVGs. Even without using a library, we started with just defining an SVG as a Svelte component, passing props and all of that before ending up using this great unplugin library. And then we've also talked about optimizing images, because sometimes you do want like a great image to catch people's attention. And we've used them. We went into a CSS rabbit hole to try to make like this section look kind of nice. I don't know if I succeeded. I'll definitely be looking into this offline and talking to the client to figure out what they imagine. But in the end, we've also used the enhanced image plugin that Svelte provides. It was in beta ages ago. It's stable now. We're using it in order to provide the one image that we have from the client, or we download from Unsplash or wherever, to automatically create more performant versions like the Aviv version, the web version, and wrap it into picture elements, which is the proper way to use the various modern formats in order to ensure that the user is going to use the most performant but supported in their browser and device source that they find. They'll use the first source that applies according to the viewport as well. So lots of cool stuff. Hello Delight. Yes, so I kept talking about this, that I do sort out things during the live streams whenever there is chat engagement and there are things that I don't know, or that I kind of know but I haven't really looked into, or that I know and have looked into and I do like, but I just didn't have in the agenda to talk about. I do affect the plans and I do talk about things because I love using awesome tools. I love showing cool solutions to others and all of that. And yeah, that's something that did we do the import here for the squirrely lines, the squigglies? Yes, so that's something that is not clear in the README, but I imagine that it must be somewhere in apt.ts, so I searched there, and indeed there was the line, if you're using Svelte, just bring this in and TypeScript will be happy for you. So yeah, we did do that, because no one wants squigglies. And the thing I was really excited about is the custom images. So sometimes 200,000 icons is not enough. Sometimes your designer is doing some real work and designing some nice icons for your app, some bespoke icons for your app. For example, for our app, we should be designing custom icons for the equipment. So custom barbell icons, dumbbell icons, I don't know, TRX icons, whatever platforms, squat track, like all those icons, you won't find them in unplugin because they are very specific to your app, to your solution. In that situation, you have a designer, or maybe you know a bit about Adobe Illustrator or Figma or whatever, and you design your own icon there, and figuring out how to use the file system icon loader, so you can tell unplugin, I have my brand icons that I want to bring in sometimes, and just do the Figma export and paste into version control into this directory, and unplugin will scan that directory as we are doing here in the newsletter. Let's have a look at how this works. So it's the same API as with the official, let's say, libraries that you can find in the Unplugin website. Your own custom ones, you use them the same way. And consistency is key. Consistency is what avoids quite a lot of problems. You won't have other engineers if you want someone to help out at some point. You won't have some engineer saying, oh, why do we have like a Svelte component for the logo, but we're bringing in things, other SVGs like this? Like, how does that work? You have the one common way to bring in icons, SVG icons, and it's nice. It's easy, it's convenient. Right, so that's pretty much what we did today. I did talk about how I did more on the CRM integration offline, but I still need to do even more because we need to figure out what we actually want to specify in this page and what would be cool to show next. So authentication would be a cool subject. Tailwind would be a probably smaller subject or shorter subject, but still important. Tailwind 4 right around the corner, it sounds like, if the beta is out. So we may need to talk more about that. Let me know any surprising other issues, any other tools that you want me to go over. And if I think I can bring in some insight, or if they can really help at this stage of the development journey and leveling up as a web engineer, I will. But that should be it for today. My puppy has been snoring peacefully all this time. She will be rewarded with a lovely walk. I did search, so Delight says the VS Code plugin. And I did search for unplugin and to see if there was a VS Code plugin, but apparently there is just the Iconify, which unplugin is using behind the scenes. So that's something to look as well. And Bozidar, of course, leave the comment either here in the chat, like anytime you show up, say anything in the chat. It's nice to clear my mind and go into a bit of a conversation. Sometimes, although when it's a YouTube comment or a Discord conversation, it's a bit easier for me to gather my thoughts. But there is value in the off-the-cuff thoughts as well, like my instinct when you ask me something here. There is value in seeing what my instinct is. But if it's on Discord, then I'm able to think about it more and commit. Oh, what counts? Son is asking, what counts as a meaningful test in V-test? So that's a beautiful question. That's something that I've done internal and external talks about, and a huge discussion, like what should be tested, what shouldn't be tested, what is meaningful, what is not meaningful. And I'd love to go into it for sure. It's another subject is that I've been thinking about is the test that everyone avoids. There are a few types of tests that people love to skip or get intimidated and don't do. Authentication authorization is one of them because it is harder to do, but still possible. So trying to cover those would be cool, because usually the most meaningful tests are those. The authentication flow, the sign-up flow, is probably the most important flow in your app. It's how users start on their journey to becoming paying users. So that sounds very important, but it's often avoided because it's hard to test. So the most meaningful one would be this, but if it takes you like 100 hours to set up a test for this, like, is it still worth to do? I don't know. So that's definitely something to discuss. I would be doing more, but every time I do like a meaningful test live stream, it tanks. So I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job of, or if just people don't want to know. But for internal talks, when people are forced to watch me talk about this, I definitely love covering those subjects. But I keep trying every so often. It's one of my favorite subjects, for sure. All right, I think that's gonna be it. Next Sunday should be the next one. I'll keep you posted in the Discord as well. We've been on a roll with the Sunday live streams. We stopped being on the roll of 5-hour plus marathon live streams. So Frangela asks, do I see value in having skip link on website? I don't know what skip link is. Is it related to authentication? Let's see. Ah, right, I see. So I think it's cool, but I don't know if as a user, hmm, I'm not sure. I'll need to think about this. I know that it's a common joke that you're just looking for like a pastry cooking recipe, and you're forced to go to a website where it tells you the story of your life. And my grandma was doing these cookies for so long, and you need to go into quite a few paragraphs that have advertisement blocks and all of that. And all you really want is just to see like it needs these items, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of that. So I think it's awesome that you can link straight into it, or open this, I guess. Just do this. Press tab and go to where you want. It's awesome. I think there are many things that websites do skip that make them a bad experience, but they feel by necessity in order for them to be profitable. They just do. So there is a reason why every recipe website is like this and has all these ad sections. So is this a power user enough feature that people don't know about enough that you can have it? I don't know. Like I wish to see it in most websites. As usual, the Gov.uk website is awesome, and I miss living in the UK because even doing your taxes was so easy with the UK interface. So for the websites that don't have to make money because they're getting it from the taxpayer, I guess, it's awesome. Like you should do this. You should allow the user to be able to go straight into the content. I think it's awesome. But I foresee that most websites, unfortunately, will not be implementing that because they don't want you to go straight to the actual recipe. They want you to go through the ads and the story of their lives. Oh well. But yeah, Gainzatron is not a paid for website, so I will look into if we're able to do it in ours or any other app that I make. The thing is, like, would we be able to convince like a recipe website that is like made for ad views and ad clicks? Would we be able to say that this is a power user enough feature that people don't know about, that we can add it and people who know will appreciate it and most people will not care and you still get the ad revenue? I think that's possible. I think that's possible to do. And then you can get some virality because if someone then on Reddit says, oh, I love this recipe website because it has like the classic things that every recipe website has with too much fluff in order to look at the ads. But if you do this, then you actually skip to the content. It gets the virality factor, like people are going to use it there. I think it's going to sound awesome. All right. Thanks a bunch to everyone for spending a bit of your time with me, especially people in the chat. Lots of interesting questions, lots of interesting things for me to study up on and investigate for next time. I'll catch you all later. Have a lovely rest of Sunday and a lovely week coming up. Bye.